Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is SportsIQ with Larry Smith.
Welcome here to the weekend. Glad you're with us here. Larry Smith, Tony Cordero, Josh Ewing, the three of us, we make up Sports IQ with Larry Smith. Listen, we've all been doing this a very long time. And so the three of us, we reach out to a lot of different people. Producer Tony he is a pit bull when it comes to getting guests on the show. Great guest coming up, by the way, on Monday. Our former colleague at CNN Sports, Matt Morrison, has a tremendous story. His daughter was a really good champion swimmer. Possibly one day, maybe Olympics, maybe. And she developed a brain tumor and died at the age of 18. And he's written a book about her, a tribute to her story. It's called Touched, the Matt Morrison story. He will be on the show Monday talking about that. Be sure to join us. Just a tremendous, amazing story, and we want to share with you. So that's on Monday. By the way, we're on Spotify. We're on Apple. We're on YouTube. Be sure to check out our daily shorts. We've got the shows on there as well, so you can find us everywhere. One thing we do, we're here for good conversation. If you're new to what we're doing, we don't scream or yell, call names, curse, all that. It's a family show. Grandma can listen. Your kids can listen. Doesn't matter. Great interview guests. We have three more of them today. Chris Bengel is joining us, talking a little NBA here in a couple of minutes. We've got Max Dibble talking Packers, Green Bay with a big win last week over the Bears at home. As a longtime Bears fan, I saw it coming. This is just, it's set. Chicago's been winning by the skin of their teeth. Good for them. It's been great. It's been a fun season. But boy, when the Packers get involved, it's always something different. And then an Army-Navy game. We'll look forward to that as well. Our friend Bill Wagner joining us here in the show as well. So lots coming up here this weekend. Let's get very quickly to some headlines, by the way. Thursday night, NFL. It was like turn back the clock night in Atlanta. Both the Falcons and Bucs wearing uniforms from the 70s. Falcons, their red helmets and black Falcon on the side. The Bucs in those infamous creamsicle jerseys and helmets. It was the 48th anniversary of their first ever win. Remember, they went 0-14 in year one. Were 0-12 in year two before they finally got the win in December. 48 years ago. But the Bucs also played like they're an expansion team last night. Atlanta rallying from 14 points down to the fourth for a stunning 29-28 win over the Bucs. Zane Gonzalez, a 43-yard field goal as time expired to cap the rally. How incredible was this? The Falcons hadn't won a game. They trailed by 14-plus points in the fourth quarter since 1993. I think that was like Jerry Glanville days. By the way, the Falcons also committed 19 penalties, the most of any team in the league. And by the way, it's also a franchise record. So it's not like they were playing good football Thursday night. During the final drive, the Bucs had the Panthers at 3-28, but let them off the mat to get into position for the game-winning field goal. If that isn't classic mid-70s Buck football, I don't know what is. Kyle Pitts' career night, 11 grabs, 166 yards, and 3 scores. Bijan Robinson had 93 on the ground, caught 8 passes for 82 yards as well. By the way, Pitts, the first tight end, according to ESPN, with 150 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. First tight end to do that since Shannon Sharp back in 1996. Bucs, meanwhile, have lost 4 of their last, make that 5 of their last 6. Not going well now. They're down in Florida. By the way, if anybody listening to this has any Iowa Hawkeye fans in their lives, I'm going to give them a wellness check. Earlier in the week, we told you about the Iowa State women's team behind star center Aldi Crooks beating the Lady Hawkeyes. Well, last night, the men's basketball team had to travel to Ames to take on the 4th-rated Cyclones. You can guess how it turned out. Joshua Jefferson scored 24 points, 4th-ranked Iowa State overcoming a 13-point deficit to stay unbeaten with a 66-62 win. Cyclones a little off early, maybe too much partying after pantsing Purdue at their place on Saturday, but they got things going around the 10-minute mark and had a 19-0 run from the end of the first half to the second half to take control, and they held on for their 4th straight win in the Cyhawk series. Circle this date on your calendar, September 19th, 2026. I know, you're like, Larry, it's 9 months away. I don't know what we're doing in September. Well, Lane Kiffin knows what he's doing. Pretend this is you're pregnant. This is your due date. Lane Kiffin is due on this date because that's the day that LSU travels to Oxford, Mississippi to take on the Ole Miss Rebels, September 19th, 2026. The SEC putting out their schedule on Thursday. My guess is You won't be able to find a tomato in all of Oxford that weekend because they'll be loading up to greet the LSU plane when it hits town. Meanwhile, one note, by the way, from the NBA, Nikola Jokić had 36 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 assists. The Nuggets breezed past the Kings 136-105 on Thursday night for their franchise record 11th straight road win. How much does Jokić like playing the Kings? Well, so far this season, he's faced them 3 times. He scored 36, 35, and 44 points against them. It makes you realize that in the year Wilt Chamberlain averaged 50 points a game in the 1961-62 season, every night for him was like playing the Kings. As we mentioned a couple of minutes ago, Chris Bengel joining us right now. He is an NBA writer with PrizePicks. Chris, always good to see you. Good to have you back on the show. Let's talk about someone that, boy, unlike last year, we don't talk about much because his team isn't winning. Cooper Flagg. I say it because ESPN does that. It's Cooper Flagg. Mr. Flagg, the star rookie, number 1 overall pick for the Dallas Mavericks. How's it going so far in the opening weeks of his first campaign in the league?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit different than it went at Duke, right? He was kind of big man on campus, and everything was going his way all last year, and through the tournament as well was could do no wrong. But there have been growing pains, to start the year here with Dallas. It's kind of been up and down at times, averaging around 17 a game, and I think consistency has really been the biggest thing. Kind of struggling to find his shot at times, only shooting, I think, around 25% from 3. I think his biggest thing has been, kind of forcing shots at time, not taking an insane amount of threes, only about 3 a game, but trying to find his shot, I think, has been the biggest issue. We've seen more flashes of it lately when he's not kind of settling for those perimeter shots. I think it also hasn't necessarily helped that Dallas has been a little injured this year. Derek Lively now out for the year. He's been banged up. Anthony Davis has been banged up at times as well. So that certainly hasn't helped him. Obviously doesn't have a star-studded crew like he did at Duke. So, little more growing pains. But, I think he is starting to turn the corner.
Yeah, it was really impressed with that game a couple of weeks ago, the 35-point game he had against the Clippers. It felt like maybe things began to click for him with that. He's averaging 20 points his last few games.
Yeah, I think he is starting to kind of come around. I think he's trying to, find himself a little more, playing with more confidence. When he gets, kind of into his bag and finds that mid-range game, I think that's really where he excels, when he's can get to the basket, can draw those fouls, can, kind of, I think that's kind of his game. I mean, sure, he can hit those threes when he has those opportunities, but, he doesn't need to force those shots at the NBA level, maybe nearly as much as he did when he was at Duke. So I think, he is kind of coming around.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Thunder 24-1. They tie the Warriors record for best start ever. I mean, you almost kind of run out of superlatives with this team. The defending champs, we knew they'd come out strong, be the prohibitive favorite at the the onset of the season. They have exceeded expectations as if that was even possible.
I mean, what do you even say at this point? I mean, just take it to the NBA Cup game the other night against Phoenix. I mean, they are up 50 points. I mean, what do you even say? What they can do no wrong? 24-1, just absolutely dismantling teams. Just, guys are sitting out in the fourth quarter. They're sitting guys on certain nights, even if SGA or, Chet Holmgren, whoever's not in there, they're still winning games by 20, 30 points. And it's, not looking competitive at times. And they've done all this save for the past, week and a half, 2 weeks without Jalen Williams. Yeah. One of their top players who really came on in the NBA Finals last year, and was one of the biggest reasons they won that series. So, I think we're seeing a historic team that easily could win back-to-back NBA titles if they keep on, kind of the tear that they're on. And, is there anybody that can take them in a 7-game series that can beat them in 4 games the way they're playing right now? That remains to be seen. It doesn't look like it.
Yeah. I mean, right now, if you win one game, it's time to pop the champagne. Just the way they're going in a series
Right.
have been outstanding. Also in the West, the Warriors had the hot start, cooled off a bit. They hope to get Steph Curry back Friday night as they return from that 3-game trip. Is it time to begin to dismantle this team and start to rebuild, or should they still kind of hold on so they can come together here and make a run in the playoffs?
I think it's hard because this group has done it so many times before. It's
Yeah.
hard to think about breaking this group up just because, this group of, Steph and Draymond and, all these guys now with Jimmy Butler there, they've, done it so many times before and, have come along strong, when it matters. And, this is a team that, they have not gotten off to the best start, but I think if they're able to find a little consistency, this is a team that, has been really good defensively. They're allowing the fourth fewest points per game. They're, have a very veteran heavy group. They're able to stay healthy. I think Al Horford was a nice pickup for them in the offseason, a guy that can really stabilize that interior. And I think will pay some dividends once the postseason rolls around. And, you know, you know, Steph can stay healthy and kind of get back, I think they'll be in good shape. And, I think all they really have to do is make sure they're in that postseason field. And I think anything is possible. Obviously, you said the Thunder are a juggernaut, but at the same time, the Warriors are the Warriors. And until they prove otherwise, and, Steph Curry starts to break down, I feel like you have to, kind of keep it going with this group until they give you a reason not to.
Yeah, they did last year. You mentioned the 7 seed knocking off the 2 seed Houston there in the opening round. Meanwhile, the Lakers right now, strong start for them. What can they do to get better defensively?
Yeah, they're this is really it's a tough situation. They're such a top heavy group, obviously with Luca, LeBron. Obviously, LeBron being hurt to start the year was not an ideal situation. Um, you know, 21st in defensive rating this year. Not it has not been ideal. The other night, obviously, you know, Spurs still without Wembanyama. Kind of take it to them in that second quarter and completely run away with that NBA Cup game. And they just look completely overmatched sometimes. Just getting torched from the perimeter. The perimeter defense just it needs to be improved. At this point, not even sure what the answer is, but something has to change. JJ Redick is going to have to come up with something because the defense is really what's letting them down. There's been several games, point back to they played the Suns, it was a week or two ago, kind of the same thing, neck and neck until that second quarter. And then they kind of get torched. They go into halftime down double digits, and it's just too big of a deficit to overcome. And you can have LeBron and Luke all you want, but if you are down that many points, that's just such a big deficit to overcome. And, they're going to need to figure out a way to fix this defense.
Yeah, I mean, like you can score 130 points a night, but if you can't make stops,
it's not going to matter.
Yeah, what does it matter? Exactly. LeBron James coming up here in a couple of weeks will turn 41 years old. He's still LeBron. He's flirted with the triple double the other night. We're hearing that talk about maybe Giannis being traded from the Bucks. Could the Lakers look to trade LeBron?
It's hard to envision, LeBron ever on the trading block. It really is, but
never happened. Yeah,
it's crazy to think about. I think I would think they would try to avoid that at all costs. Especially if he is able to kind of get back to form. We did see shades of it the other night. Kind of one of those posterizing old school kind of LeBron dunks, and kind of had a lot of those plays that we've come to expect from him. And I think that if he can kind of get back to form, he does have, I think, only around like 7-8 games under his belt this year, and since coming back from the injury. And if he can kind of get back to form, I wouldn't think that they would flirt with trading him. But if it came, kind of at the cost of, maybe getting a more athletic wing, someone that could, defend the perimeter a little better, maybe they do, kind of think about that, because like I said, something is going to have to change defensively. You can only score so many points. So, maybe that is something that they, think about if that opportunity came up.
Yeah. Talking with Chris Bengel, NBA writer for PrizePicks here on the Sports IQ. Going into the weekend here in the East, the Celtics 15-10, doing it without Jayson Tatum. Can they keep this up without their star? Is going to be out for the year with that torn Achilles he suffered in the playoffs last year?
Yeah, I think the Celtics definitely can stay competitive in the East. Obviously, right now it's looking like Pistons and the Knicks are kind of the I guess cream of the crop in the East at this moment, but Celtics still kind of in that conversation even without Tatum, have kind of stayed afloat. Jaylen Brown playing exceptional this year, averaging almost 29 a night, has been just sensational. This is a team that, still does have the potential to compete in the East. I think, still a very good defensive team, allowing the third fewest points in the league on a nightly basis. They are very strong on both ends of the court, but, like last night, they have a huge letdown against Milwaukee, a Milwaukee team without Giannis. Obviously, you can't have games like that if you're going to, be mentioned in the same breath of, some of the top teams in the East. And then I also think they're being, I think they are kind of hurt by the fact that, poor guys like Porzingis, Drew Holiday are not there anymore. They, made moves to kind of shed some salary and deal veteran guys like that in the offseason. And I think, they do miss some guys like that in terms of their secondary scoring options.
I'm going to put you out there on a limb and ask you a couple of things here to finish up our segment. First, the biggest surprise in the NBA so far here in the first couple of months of play. What team has been the biggest surprise for you?
I think for me, maybe not a huge surprise, but I think the Sixers have been a little bit more of a surprise than I think I expected. Kind of an aging roster. Joel Embiid has been, obviously it's been no secret the knee has been an issue for, how many seasons. He's not the MVP of old. The Paul George signing was, obviously kind of a disaster. He's not seen the court very much since signing with the Sixers. But this is a group that's played pretty well, kind of in the conversation, middle of pack in the East. Tyrese Maxey looking like an MVP candidate. VJ Edgecombe, who was selected at the top of the draft, playing well in that Rookie of the Year conversation. Got a lot of nice complementary pieces. Quentin Grimes, Kelly Oubre out at the moment, but was playing well prior to that. And, they do have the pieces to, I think be a playoff team in the East and, potentially maybe win a series in the first round if they're, able to avoid that play-in tournament. So I think that's probably a team that didn't really expect much from, but am a little surprised with what they've done.
Sure. And on the other side of the coin, the biggest bust of the year right now.
I think just based off what they did last year, it's got to be the Cavs. I mean, obviously a little bit of that has to do with injury. Obviously, Jared Allen's been out, Darius Garland as well. So that's, has a little bit to do with it. But after, the historic season they had last year, being the number one seed in the East and what they were able to accomplish, obviously didn't ultimately get it done. But still, I think what they were able to accomplish and to see them, kind of floundering in the standings right now is, certainly not ideal. And I think that has to be, one of the bigger busts. And, probably the Warriors, as well as we spoke about earlier, obviously not playing up to expectations. Those are probably, two teams that I don't think anyone would have saw as, kind of in the bottom half of the standings at this point in the season.
Yeah, no, it's a good call. Hey, Chris, we appreciate your time as always, man. Good to see you. If we don't talk to you, happy holidays, and we'll talk to you soon.
Happy holidays. Take it easy, guys.
All right, appreciate it. Chris Bengel joining us once again, NBA writer for PrizePicks. Good to get his thoughts, as always, here on the Sports IQ heading into the weekend. Okay, keep it here. Much more conversation on the way. Up next.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Welcome back here. Producer Tony has our next guest.
Well, thanks so much, Larry. And, NFL season's coming down to crunch time. We got 4 weeks left in the regular season. Some teams are heating up, some teams are slowing down. One of the teams that seems to be heating up at the right time is the Green Bay Packers, one of my favorites. I keep them on the wall behind me. If you guys could see that on the radio, but you can't. And joining us today is Max Dybel. He is Packers beat writer for Heavy.com. Max, thanks so much for joining us and getting to talk about this Packer team.
Happy to be here as always, Tony. Thanks.
Let's jump right in. One of the things I've noticed when the Packers have not had Christian Watson, their offense changes. What has he brought them? Because he's back, I think, sooner than some people expected from an ACL injury, but he looks to be in great form right now. Give me some things what element does he bring that they miss when he's not around?
Well, it's the athleticism and the big play ability, because they don't really have that. They have a really well-balanced group of skill position players, I think, but nobody really pops off. Nobody is a true vertical threat. It's a lot more possession receivers and, even yards after catch guys. But now, Watson, like you said, his athleticism does not seem at all hampered, even though he tore his ACL and he was back, 9 months later.
Right.
And just stepped right back onto the field. And like you said, he changed the offense essentially immediately. And it's really big, I think, too, because Jaden Reed's been out for he came back last week, but he was out after week 2 with shoulder and foot injuries that required surgery. Kraft went down 5 weeks ago. And those were the two guys that, at least when Love could get them the ball, Green Bay could get yards after catch. So even though they weren't necessarily explosive plays, although Jaden Reed could make an explosive play here or there, although they weren't necessarily like explosive playmakers, they were big gain getters. And then when they left the offense and Christian Watson isn't back, and then you've got these offensive line issues as well, I feel like it changed the way Matt LaFleur felt like he needed to call games. And so it was a domino effect. We don't have explosive plays. We don't have yards after catch guys. We don't have a great interior of the offensive line. So we're going to call, these little dink and dunk sort of offensive plays, try to get to 3rd and 6. And then we, need to make a play on 3rd down. And that's just to get 10 yards and extend the drive. So you saw that. And then, you see 13 and 7 points scored in back-to-back home losses against the Panthers and the Eagles. And that was the low point of the Packers season. But, with Christian Watson reingratiating him, it's changed the offense completely.
Losing Tucker Kraft was a big blow.
Yeah.
He had been playing so well at that point of the season. How have some of these other tight ends kind of stepped into that role and trying to help out Jordan Love and giving him, the tight end is always that safety blanket, right? He said it's a cold night. You wrap that tight end around you if you're a quarterback. How have they kind of become that blanket for him?
Well, and, I think Tucker Kraft, beyond being a safety blanket, essentially with Watson out and with Reed then out, he became the focal point of the offense. They were running the offense through him. He was leading the team in receiving yards and was on pace for, I think, close to 1,000 yards. I'd have to go do the math on it. But he went out just about halfway through the year. He had well over 500 yards. So, he was looking like he was going to be 1,000-yard receiver from a tight end position. That's pretty rarefied air. There's not a lot of guys who actually are capable of doing that. That's Travis Kelce kind of stuff. And so Musgrave has been the guy, right? Primarily, they've used a few different tight ends, but I was kind of looking through it as I was preparing here, and I saw that Kraft had games of 9 and 10 targets in his second and third to last outings. Now they clearly wanted to build the offense, or at least the pass game, around him. Musgrave hasn't seen more than 4 targets in a game over the last 5 contests since Kraft went down, but his catch percentage is pretty high. He's caught 8 out of the 12 targets he's seen, and that's right. That's 66.7%. Right. Jordan Love is completing 67.1% of his passes. So what Musgrave has been able to do is stay on par with the type of consistency that Love has been able to find, across the pass catching group over the course of the season. So I really think it's just more about you're seeing his production go up because he's getting targeted more than he was when Kraft was in the lineup, and he's making the most of those targets, so they're able to keep going, back to him. Although it's not the obviously, that Kraft was, and it's not the focal point of the offense like Kraft was, which is again why Watson coming back, being explosive, and why Reed returning last week after whatever it was, 12 weeks out, why those are such big developments for Green Bay down the stretch.
You mentioned the offensive line and the issues they were having, especially on the interior early. They seem to be playing a little better from watching them from a fan's perspective here at home. They seem to be playing a little bit better. Is it just because they're more cohesive? They've played together longer? Did it just take time to gel? Or what else has happened with that offensive line to kind of move this forward a little bit, shall we say?
I think the biggest thing is first of all, Zach Tom missed a couple games early in the season. And then he was, hampered a little bit as well. Some of the games he was playing, he's fully healthy. And he's back to being one of the best, one of the best tackles, certainly one of the best right tackles in the game. So that's big. And then Rasheed Walker has also been solid on the left side. So they've been able to at least bookend that offensive line with above average tackle play, which is helping. Jordan Love, they're protecting him a little bit more, at least from the edge rushers, on opposing defenses. And it helps too that, like Chicago doesn't rush the passer particularly well. And, some of these other teams that they're playing, it's not as dire of a situation, but the interior of the offensive line is still struggling. Anthony Belton, he's the right guard, and he's still having a really tough time. And I think that's kind of part of the reason that they don't run the ball as well as maybe we expected they would, because really those two guards in that center position, they're all weak spots. Pro Football Focus still ranks Green Bay's offensive line 22nd out of 32 teams. So they're really one spot out of the bottom third of the league right now, with 4 weeks left to play. So that is still problematic for them. But I think, the health of Tom, the consistency of the tackle play, and then just the well-developed roles. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. So even though some of the guys aren't maybe playing as well as they should be, hopefully, with the consistency and the definition of, hey, these are your responsibilities. This is where you're going to play. This is what we need from you. Hopefully they can continue to improve a little bit more before playoff time, because, the interior of the offensive line is going to be very, very important come January.
We talked, the other side of the ball, the defense, the interior of that line took a big hit when Devontae Wyatt got injured, and he's gone for the season. I've been watching on the news, I've been reading a couple of things that they're bringing in this guy from this team, this guy from that team. Is it just going to be kind of a revolving door for the rest of the season, trying to get 2 or 3 guys to fill that void, or at least make it hurt a little less that Wyatt isn't there?
Yeah, I think so. It's right now, they didn't have a ton of depth there. Right now it's Brooks and it's Wooden starting on the interior of the D line. And there's no question that without Wyatt, that hurts. It hurts your run defense. It hurts your pass rush up the middle. But Green Bay is still 8th against the run this season. And I think you really have to give a lot of credit to the linebacking core. Specifically Cooper and McDuffie. They've played well above average against the run from the linebacker spot. They're both top 20 linebackers based on PFF's overall grading metrics. So you're seeing the linebackers step up and help fill the void left by Wyatt, but he's only missed a couple of games now too. So we'll see how that develops. They're going to need a little bit better play on the defensive line, but it's almost, I almost worry more about his loss in terms of the pressure that the team can create on opposing quarterbacks than I do when it comes to being able to defend the run game.
And then the pass rush, really, thanks to Micah Parsons, obviously has taken a step up this season, right?
Yeah.
He has been, you almost want to equate it to with Reggie Jackson joined the Yankees, right? The straw that stirs the drink really seems to be Micah Parsons at this point.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's tied for third, or I believe tied for third in sacks on the season with 12 and a half. So Green Bay's gotten exactly what they paid for. He's proven he's been worth every penny. One thing I thought was interesting was a point I heard made by someone else the other day that I'm going to steal now, is that essentially, as great as Parsons has been, what the Packers were hoping for is that he would free up Rashawn Gary to face fewer double teams, face fewer chips. He would allow Lucas Van Ness to move more inside and pardon me, and become the type of player that they were hoping they would get when they drafted him in the first round a few years ago. And to a degree that happened, particularly early on in the season. But while Parsons himself has been great, unfortunately, that hasn't happened to the degree I think that Green Bay's defense and Jeff Hafley thought it was going to happen. But still, you have a guy who is a one-man terror who can disrupt 2 or 3 plays, 2 or 3 drives a game. And I would still say you have to say he's been one of the best 2 or 3 players on the defense, if not the very best player on the defense this year. And Micah Parsons is a big reason that Green Bay is leading the division right now with 4 games to play.
Yeah, up, leading the division, 4 games to go, kind of a wide open race in the NFC. Last question, we got about a minute here. Can this team make a run to a Super Bowl? Do they have enough pieces in place if they stay healthy?
I think so, but it's just going to depend on who they play, and also home field is going to matter too. Maybe not as much as it might have in past seasons because the Rams play indoors, so it might be nice to pull Stafford outside if they have to play the Rams, who look like the best team in the NFC, but they also run the ball really well, so that should translate to a game at Lambeau. And then you look at teams like Seattle, Philly, Chicago; they're all outdoor teams. But Green Bay plays outdoor as well. So, I think that they do have the capability. We're starting to hear Jordan Love MVP talk again a little bit. That was something we were hearing a lot early in the season, and then the offense fell off a little bit. But now he's coming back around. So I think if Jordan Love can, continue to play as well as he has, and it's really, to me, it's going to be how well the interior of that offensive line can play, because Green Bay runs the ball at the 20th rate in the NFL. They're going to need to do that more effectively in the playoffs. If they can somehow get better play up the middle, and they can run the ball a little more efficiently, and Love can avoid that 1, or 2 really weird passes or turnovers or weird mistakes that he seems to make every game. Yeah, I think they're good enough, because I don't think anybody's perfect. I think the one team that would scare me if I were a Packers fan would be the Los Angeles Rams. That's the team that hopefully somebody can knock them off before Green Bay has to face them. And if they can avoid them, I do think the Super Bowl is a real possibility.
Well, Max Dibel, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Max Dibel, he is the Packers beat writer for Heavy.com. Enjoy your holidays, sir, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tony.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back to talk a little more Army-Navy football coming up this weekend right after this.
You're locked in to SportsIQ with Larry Smith.
As we were talking before about the game, Army, Navy, and joining us now, Bill Wagner with the Capital Gazette newspapers there in Annapolis. Bill, welcome to the show. Hey, how exciting is this game for you every year? I mean, you get a chance to cover so many sports throughout the year, so many events, but there's just something special about this game.
Oh, absolutely. It never gets old. This will probably, I think it's like my 30th Army-Navy game, somewhere in that range. I've lost track, but every year is special. Every year It gives you goosebumps. It's just an incredible event. It's a bucket list event. Anybody who has never been to an Army Navy game, that is something you probably should want to try to do before you die. It's just remarkable, everything about it. All the pregame pomp and circumstance. The president of the United States attends the game. It's just nothing like it.
Yeah. What is it? Is there a game that sticks out in your mind as one game that maybe is special in the 30 years or so you've been covering this?
Oh, wow. There are so many. Well, one that will always be memorable was when they played on the campus of West Point at Mikey Stadium during COVID because they had, they could not have the general public fans. It was only the Corps of Cadets and the Brigade of Midshipmen. So there was no need to hold the game at a pro stadium like they normally do. So seeing an Army Navy game at the home stadium of one of the service academies, it will never happen again in our lifetime. The last time it had happened was in World War II, I believe, was the last time. So it won't happen again in our lifetimes, if ever again. So that stands out as unique. Absolutely.
We've got the anniversary coming up next year of the 250th anniversary of our country, 250th birthday, and so some special uniforms. I'm reading being designed for that. How did that come about? In terms of the idea to kind of make it special.
Well, every year they have specialty uniforms. Army has Nike design them. Navy has Under Armour, and it's always a big battle for who has the better uniform. But you try to commemorate something that is timely. So, Navy's done a variety of things, but for instance, this year, their specialty uniforms are recognizing the USS Constellation and the original fleet of Navy frigates, which is really cool. Wait till you see these helmets, guys. The helmets Navy's wearing are out of this world, and every single helmet was hand painted, and it has a replica of the USS Constitution on the back. So it's pretty cool. But obviously, in a year of the 250th anniversary, you're going to want to create specialty uniforms that signify that. So, yeah, that's how it's interesting to see what specialty uniforms each team comes up with and try to see who won the uniform battle.
Exactly. Well, some of the things we've seen out there, the pictures have leaked, so they both look really cool. Anxious to see that. Talking with Bill Wagner once again. He is a sports writer for the Capital Gazette newspapers. Talking about the Army-Navy game coming up on Saturday. One player we've been reading about is for the Middies is Landon Robinson. You cover this team, but what makes him so special?
Landon Robinson is the epitome of a freak. In fact, Bruce Feldman of ESPN and other outlets, every year he puts out what he calls a freaks list. It's college football athletes who are just really unique, and Landon's been on that each of the last 3 years. I think he checks in at number 11 this year. He was recruited as an inside linebacker. When he came out of high school, he weighed 225 pounds. He now weighs 285, but he's just as fast as he was when he was a linebacker in high school. He reaches over 20 miles per hour on the catapult machine, which is just absolutely incredible for a 285-pound man. He's the strongest player on the Navy football team. I think he can squat lift over 500 pounds, bench press more than 300 pounds. I mean, he is just unbelievable, and he's a great player. He's the American Conference Defensive Player of the Year. He just got named All-American by Sports Illustrated. He is a pro prospect for sure, although he's a little bit undersized in terms of height. But a lot of people liken him to Aaron Donald, the former Pittsburgh defensive lineman who played so long and had such success with the Rams. So Landon Robinson is a unique and special athlete, and he was the main impact player in terms of defense for Navy last year. He was a game wrecker. Army could not move him off the ball. In fact, he was gaining penetration so much that he was really wreaking havoc and causing disruption. So if Army has any chance to win this game, they have got to try to block Landon Robinson, which is easier said than done.
Yeah, exactly. Boy, what a freak player. And he, obviously deserves all the accolades. The team returning to Baltimore for the first time in almost a decade. Do you have a favorite? And what's unique about Baltimore, maybe different than Philadelphia?
Yeah, well, I've covered a number of Army-Navy games in Baltimore, also some Navy-Notre Dame games in Baltimore. They have a very strong relationship with Baltimore Ravens, who host at M&T Bank Stadium. The last game you referenced was very memorable in that it was the end of the streak. As you know, Navy had a 14-game winning streak over Army. It's the longest streak for either side in the history of the game, and that was the year that Navy actually had a great team. They played in the American Conference Championship, and that was held 1 week before the Army-Navy game, which made things very challenging. And worse yet, Navy lost several players, including their starting quarterback, in that American Conference Championship game against Tulane. So a sophomore quarterback named Zach Avey had to make his first career start against Army. He's the only Navy quarterback to ever make his first career start against Army, and Army won the game, a low-scoring affair, and that ended the epic 14-game winning streak for Navy.
Wow. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that, but of course you've been there every game, so you will remember these. Well, tell us, what can we expect? We talk about everything else on the field for this game in 2025. How do you think this will play out? What do you expect to see?
I never ever have any expectations, because it never ever would go as you think it would. Navy is the better team on paper. They tied for the American Conference. I should say they tied for first place in the American Conference. They did not make the championship game due to tiebreakers. But Army finished 4-4 in the conference. Army had to win its last game to become bowl eligible. Obviously, Navy was bowl eligible. They started 7-0, so they were bowl eligible midway through the season. Obviously, Navy on paper is the better team, but Army's quite capable. We're talking about a team that beat Kansas State, a Big 12 conference opponent, on its home field. So Army is very bit capable of beating Navy if it plays its game. The one thing I will say is Navy is a very high-scoring team. For most of the season, they're averaging over 34 points a game. Army averages 23 points a game. So the key for Army is to shorten the game, possess the ball, win the time of possession battle, and keep the Navy offense off the field. Because if Navy gets up into the 30s in terms of points, I don't think Army can match that.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about this game that for me, it just harkens back to the early days. I mean, what is this, 126th meeting, I think I saw? Or something?
Yes, 126th meeting. You're correct.
Okay. My memory's not slipping too badly, I guess. But I think it's just, obviously we were mentioning earlier this week that this is a game that, once upon a time, you would have national championship implications. Sometimes we don't see that quite as much. But, you don't hear of the coaching scandals, the NIL and all that. So it just feels like it's, I don't know, kind of, you get through all the stuff during the season. And as Tony was mentioning the other day, producer Tony, it's nice because it's simpler. It's its own weekend. All the other games are over, and you just play just the one. It's the marquee game this week, and I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah, well, I think it's been said quite often that in this era of college football, this is the last vestige of purity of amateur athletics in terms of college sports. I mean, you're talking about, most of these players are going to go serve. I mean, there's a rare time when an Army or Navy graduate makes the NFL. It happens usually one or two every 5 years. It's just a real rarity. So most of these guys are going immediately into service after graduation. And, there is no NIL, no transfer portal. Right now, other teams are dealing with kids transferring. They're trying to get transfers in. Army and Navy are not in that business.
Yeah, exactly.
A couple kids here and there to transfer. Although Navy did not lose a single player to transfer last year, which was pretty doggone remarkable.
Wow.
But yeah, it's the last vestige of purity within college football.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to put it. And I know I've enjoyed over the years watching no Napoleon McCallum, on this team, or years ago Roger Starbuck, but at the same time, it'll be outstanding. Bill, listen, we know you are super busy. We appreciate you taking a few minutes with us. Enjoy this game as always, and happy holidays to you.
All right, same to you guys, and I appreciate the time.
All right, appreciate you. Thanks so much, man. Bill Wagner, again, we appreciate his thoughts on this. Once again, sports reporter for the Capital Gazette News. They're in Annapolis, and he has a Beautiful seat right there at M&T Bank Stadium on Saturday. Watching for this one, it is Army-Navy and the 126th meeting of these two academies. Okay, we've got more Sports IQ up next. A couple of notes to pass along. Heisman Trophy, of course, will be awarded Saturday night by the Downtown Athletic Club in Manhattan. Maybe it's a precursor, but Fernando Mendoza, the star Indiana quarterback, being named the Associated Press Player of the Year. Almost 3,000 passing yards, led FBS with 33 touchdown passes. 39 touchdowns accounted for. That's a school record against only 6 interceptions. What a year the Hoosiers are having. Big Ten champs, first time since 1967. Mendoza, probably the favorite to take the hardware and join that illustrious club in college football. UCLA wants to play in SoFi Stadium permanently. USC may be joining him. They can't get away from the Trojans. They likely will play in the Rams and Chargers home digs in 2028. Because their home, the LA Coliseum, will be being used for the Summer Olympics for the third time, which is just one of the great stories in sports. 1932, 1984 were the other 2 years, and now 2028. One of the great stadiums in our country, if not the world, will be center stage once again there. So the Trojans may be on the move temporarily. Producer Tony, Army-Navy game. No matter where they play it, Philadelphia, Baltimore, whatever, it's, as we talked to today, this is always one of the just very special games on the college football calendar.
Yeah, I'm so glad that, this game in the last 15 years has been moved away from everything else. It doesn't get lost in the clutter. It has a Saturday all to itself because it really is, there's some FCS playoff games going on, and that's fine. But this is the only FBS game going on this weekend. And I think that's awesome. I love seeing that out there and just love watching that game. These two gritty schools, these guys have so much more on their plate than just football, as opposed to like your average football school, whether it be Georgia, Notre Dame, USC. These guys have many more things going on and are going to go on and do great things for this country. I just love watching this game and seeing it played wherever it is they get it on.
Yeah, and special uniforms designed, too, for the 250th anniversary of both the Army and the Navy. And so, again, what a great day. The celebrities there, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. College basketball Friday night in Hartford. It's the number 5 UConn taking on Texas. But I want to look at Saturday and a great top 25 matchup. 17th ranked Arkansas at number 16, Texas Tech. This game actually at a neutral site in Dallas at the Mavericks Arena. How about John Calipari? Really just did not do much in his final 3-4 years there in Kentucky. That's a program. It's now been a decade since its last Final Four. But people beginning to take notice with this Arkansas team that may be at the moment the second best team in the SEC.
Yeah, they're playing really good team basketball. They're moving the ball. They're playing with tough defense. Look, Calipari didn't suddenly forget how to coach at Kentucky. I think he had leaned for a little bit on those 5 stars, on getting those kids who were just so much more talented than everybody else he was playing. Maybe they didn't hear the messages he had to say because their talent was so high up there. But now he's really getting teams to play his style of basketball, that defensive style, that play inside, deny the basket, don't give anything easy, play on the perimeter. Let's get some steals. They don't play that Nolan Richardson frenetic 40 minutes, but they're still playing tough, hard defense in the middle. And he's getting the most out of the kids. He lost Boogie Flanders. Some people said, now he's going to take a step back. Well, not really. He is still continuing to teach and grow. And I still think Calipari can flat out coach.
Yeah, I think he got complacent in Lexington, to be honest, the last years. I think, like you said, let's bring the 5-star guys and go out there. It feels like there's like you said, a renewed energy with him, and including the late run they had. Look, early in the year, looked like they were not going to make the NCAA tournament, but they did, and they advanced. And so I think now they go up against a Texas Tech team as well. A bit of a disappointment right now. They began the season in the top 10. They come in, both teams 7-2. They've got the Toppin kid, who's one of the best players in the country, the All-American. He is a beast, scoring machine. That's a fun game to watch, by the way, if you have time. Noon Eastern time, it's on ESPN2. And the other team is a bit of surprise, Nebraska. The Cornhuskers, 23rd in the nation. They're 10-0. That ties a team record for the best start ever. They're at an Illinois team coming off an emotional win not only last week on the neutral court in Nashville against Tennessee, but Tuesday night, as we talked about, at Ohio State to open Big Ten play.
You got to really take your hat off to the Huskers, right? This has always been a football school. Basketball is something you do to get to spring football, right? In Nebraska, but they are really carving a little niche out for themselves. Fred Hoiberg has them playing really good basketball. Saw them play against Wisconsin. They were denying every pass Wisconsin tried to make. They were up on everybody. They were playing in-your-face defense. They were working hard, and they were moving the ball nicely on offense and getting some open three-pointers and hitting those shots, which is always – and, Hoiberg loves the three. So you got to figure any team he's a part of is going to be able to make the three-pointer shot. And good for them for being one of the surprises. And again, like we talked about yesterday, you don't need to have a Cinderella in any sport be just a school that nobody's ever heard of. You've got a lot of major schools that have never done anything in a sport. Nebraska would be one in basketball. To see them get anywhere this year would be great.
Yeah. By the way, I did a little research last night. We talked about 17 college football national champions since 1990. The number of college basketball national champions since 1990, 17.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. All right. And on that, our moment of awe is next. Time now for a moment of awe, and it goes out to Lindsey Vonn at 41 years young. She is back. Her first win in nearly 8 years. Her first since a 5-year retirement, had implants put in her knee, but she looked outstanding on Friday. She says she's trying to get to Italy for the Olympics in 2026, and we hope she makes it. Shall I say it's all downhill from here? No. Let's just stick with our moment of awe. And that's our show for today. Thanks to our guests. Thanks to you as well. Enjoy this weekend. Stay warm wherever you are. We'll see you Monday on the Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at SportsIQ LS. We'll see you next time.